today's presentation, the Honorable Lecturer, Mr. Andriana, and all of my beloved friends. First of all, let us thanks to the Allah Subhanahu wa Taala because in this discussion we can gather in good health. I'm Professor Tulisa, and I will be the moderator, and I will introduce my beautiful friends. First is Feni Tawafani Muslimah. Hello, Feni. And next is Nur Ainun. Hi, Ainun. And the last is Rafika. Hello, Rafika.
Hello.
I would like to introduce you the presenters. Our presenters for today are from Group 1. Today, I will present about the translator, interpreter, and cultural mediator. Here's our material, translation and culture. Next, the translator and interpreter. Next, the cultural mediator. And the last is classification of roles. Okay, now I will read one by one our agenda today. That our first is opening, second is presentation session, and last is closing. So guys, let's open our meeting by saying basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, the first material is about translation and culture. Will be explained by Feni Tawafani Muslimah. For Feni, time is yours.
Okay, so thank you very much to the moderator who has given me time and chance to present my material. It's about translation and culture. So guys, before we go to the materials, I will inform you that there is 3 points of translation and culture. The first one is technical translating. The second one is about internalization and also localization. And the third one is about culture. So the first material is technical translating that has 6 points of this. So the first one is about technology, like Google Translate can help with technical translation, but it often misses the finer details of language and culture. So in this point, technologies such as Google Translate and machine translation tools can assist in translating technical and specialized content. But it often falls short in capturing nuances of the language, cultural context. And the second one is about standardizing technical terms. It is a work in progress, and human translators with expertise in specific fields are still needed. So in this second point, efforts to standardize technical terminology are ongoing, but the language nuances and cultural differences persist in specialized fields, making human translators with domain-specific knowledge essential. And the third one is technical translation. Challenges include understanding words with multiple meanings and idioms, grasping context and culture, and also dealing with the legal rules. So in this point, challenges in technical translation means highlighted through examples, including the need to interpret polysemous terms and also idiomatic expressions. The importance of understanding the context and the culture, and also the impact of legal regulations, also translations. And the fourth point is technical translation require deep knowledge of the subject and the culture they are intended for. So in this point, number 4, the text emphasizes that technical translation require a deep understanding of the subject matter matter and the cultural context in which that the translation is intended to be used. And the fifth one is different countries may translate technical information differently due to cultural norms and laws. So the fifth is about the culture and it's discuss a variation in the translation of technical information in different countries, especially in the context of food labeling and also product warning, and how this difference reflect cultural norms and also the regulations. So the last one is about technology can assist, but it cannot replace human translators who brings expertise and cultural understanding to specialized fields. So in the last one point, the next underscores that while technology can aid translation, it cannot replace the expertise and cultural sensitivity of human translators, particularly in specialized and technical fields. So in this point, overall, the text underscores the limitation of technology in capturing subtleties of language and cultural context. So it's emphasizing the indispensable role of human translators with specialized knowledge in providing accurate and meaningful translations. Maybe that's all from me, so I return to moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to Venita Wavani. And next material, next slide, sorry. Okay, next material is about internationalization and location. What is internationalization? Internationalization, on the other hand, is the design of a product so that it can be easily adapted for foreign market, Cronin 2003. And design and development of product application or document content that enable easy location for target audience that differ in culture, region, or language. Next, what is localization? The term localization was first used to describe how software needed to be re-engineered for various language and culture, but it is now used more broadly to refer to the process of adapting an exciting product to the demands of a particular local market. Localization is also used to describe any web product which is designed separately with a specific local appeal, and such as local edition of Time and Newsweek. And linguistic adaptation of the content for the target area, its language and cultural peculiarities to make it suitable, comprehensible, and comfortable for native speaker to use. Next. Okay, next material is technical aspect of localization. An example of this is a Microsoft internal documents warning localizers of typical localization problems when translating software and manuals from American English. This approach helps create seamless interface and ensure accurate translation. First is software localization. Localization of software involves adapting the user interface, help files, and documentation to meet the linguistic, cultural, and technical requirements of a particular target market. And the next is localization tools. There are various tools available to assist in the localization process, including translation memory software, terminology management tools, and localization management system. And the last is website localization. Website localization involves adapting the content of a website to suit the linguistic, cultural, and technical requirement of a particular target market. This includes translating the content, adapting the graphic, and modifying the layout. Okay, next. Okay, next material is about a cultural. Will be explained by Feni Tawafani Muslima for Feni. Time is yours.
Okay, so thank you very much to the moderator who has given me time again to present the new material is about the culture. So this culture has 8 points. So the first point is about translation involves cultural understanding and communication skills in addition to language. So in this translation requires cultural understanding. It means that the text emphasizes that translation is not just about converting words. It involves understanding and also respecting the cultural context and nuances of the language being translated. The second one is about business success in foreign language requires cultural sensitivity. So the second point is about the cultural sensitivity. It means that the success of business in foreign markets is not solely dependent on their products and services. Um, it also hinges on their ability to adapt and respect the cultural differences of those markets. And the next one is about cultural clashes can lead to the failure of mergers and acquisitions. In this point, cultural classes in mergers and acquisition, the text or what's that, the point points out that cultural differences can lead to the disappointment of the mergers and also the acquisition. These differences can be as significant and also significant as the misalignment of the business practices and priorities. The next point is about culture can be viewed as a distinct communities of the practice. So in this point, the text or the point introduces the idea that culture can be understood as a distinct communities of practice. Even seemingly similar groups may have vastly different ways of working, which is important to consider in the translation. And the next one is about translating for these communities demand human intervention due to the cultural nuances. So in this point, human intervention in translation, which means that uh, the text introduces, while machine translation can provide a basic translation, it often lacks the depth to account for the cultural nuances. Human intervention is essential to ensure that translation are culturally accurate and sensitive. And the next about translation is essential for bridging the gaps between consisting cultures. So, in this point, highlights that the role of translation in bringing together consisting cultures. It helps in overcoming fragmented knowledge and social life caused by cultural differences. And the next one is about it is an interpretative and critical process. So that means in this context, translation isn't merely a mechanical process, but an interpretive and critical one. It involves understanding and conveying the underlying meaning and also the cultural context. And the last one, there is the need for intercultural mediators who do more than translate is growing. So, in this context, the text suggests that as the cultures interact and coexist, there is a growing demand for individuals who can do more than just translate words. Intercultural mediators are needed to facilitate cooperation between groups with different worldviews and ways of thinking. So maybe that's all from me. I return back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Fanny. And next material, next slide. Okay, next material is the cultural mediator. What is a cultural mediator? The term cultural mediator was first introduced in Stephen Bruckner's 1981 book, Practice Between Cultures. The Council of Europe defined intercultural mediation as a multifaceted role where a mediator acts as outside third party and cultural intermediary between a person or community and institution departments. They are often referred to as go-betweens, facilitators, conciliators, or negotiators due to their interpersonal skill. And according to Tauf, a cultural mediator is a person who facilitates communication, understanding, and action between persons or groups who differ with respect to language and culture. The role of the mediator is performed by interpreting the expression, intention, perception, and expectation of each cultural group to the other. That is by establishing and balancing the communication between them. In order to serve as a link in this sense, the mediator must be able to participate to some extent in both cultures, as a mediator must be to a certain extent be cultural. Okay, next. Okay, why is a cultural mediator important? Intercultural mediators mean school, in the words of Francisco Raga Gimeno, is to contribute to improving French communication with the local community in general and with public service professionals in particular with immigrants from developing countries. Cultural difference can lead to misunderstanding, conflict, and violence in an increasingly globalized world. Cultural mediators are crucial in promoting cross-cultural understanding and helping prevent these negative outcomes. Okay, next. Okay, what a mediator should have, according to Taft, a mediator must possess the following in both cultures. First is knowledge about society. There is history, folklore, tradition, custom, values, prohibition, the natural environment and its importance, neighboring people, important people in the society, and etc. And the second is communication skill. There is a written, spoken, and nonverbal. And the third is technical skill. This does require by the mediator status, for example, computer literacy, appropriate dress, and etc. And the last is social skills, knowledge of rules that govern social relation in society, and emotional competence, for example, the appropriate level of self-control. Okay, next. Cultural mediators are required to have the following three categories of communication and related skill. Similarly, Raga Jimeno identify three types of communicative, activities, and related skill required of cultural mediator. First is linguistic, including translation and interpreting of verbal communication, knowledge of terminology, appropriate register, and etc. And next is explication. For example, is of cultural belief, interactional patterns, administrative norms, and procedures. And the last is negotiation and conflict resolution technique. Okay, next. Okay, the translator and interpreter will be explained by Nur Ainun. For Ainun, time is yours.
Okay, thank you to moderator. So in this time, I will explain about the translator and interpreter. So the first is interpreter. The interpreter has long been thought of as a discrete, if not invisible, black box and as a walking generalist translator of words, as Sandra Hell, 2014 to 322 notes. This view is untenable because language and culture are intertwined and accurate interpreting cannot be achieved at the basic word level. So, in this text, focus is on the role of the interpreter as a culture mediator. It emphasized that interpreters should no longer be as seen as mere word for word translator, but as specialists in facilitating understanding between different cultures. So the next is interpreter and translator codes of ethics. Often stress and requirement that interpreters and translator act with a sense of detachment and neurability, limiting themselves to the transfer of message and abstaining from any alteration, softening, or strengthening of message. These codes derive from the International Federation of the Translators Charter. So, from the text, mention that interpreters' codes of ethics often emphasize the importance of neurability and this discretion, stressing that interpreters should stick to message transfer without changing or modifying the content. Okay, next. Okay, the next point is impartiality. Interpreters and translators observe impartiality in all professional contexts. Interpreters remain unbiased throughout the communication exchange between the participant in any interpreted encounter. Translators do not show bias toward either the author of the source text or the intended readers of the translation. So, uh, the text mean explain the importance of narratability in the role of translator and interpreter. We must remain impartial and not influence the message we are translating. The role of the translator and interpreter is to facilitate communication between parties who do not share the same language and ensure the message is conveyed accurately. We must not show favoritism towards an author of the source text or the intended reader of the translation. Okay, the next point is clarity of role boundaries. Interpreter and translator maintain clear boundaries between their tasks as facilitators of communication through message transfer and any task that may be undertaken by other parties involved in the assignment. So, this explains the importance of maintaining clear role boundaries in translator and interpreter. We must focus on message transfer and not engage in other tasks such as an advocate, guidance, or advice. Even, even if additional tasks are required by the employment agreement, it is important to maintain a clear boundary between translating and other tasks. The description of our role should be in line with the applicable principle of the code. Okay? The last is the translation or translator. The idea of the translator as a mediating agent is not new. George Steiner, 1975 to 45, point out that the translator is a bilingual mediating agent between monolingual communication participants in two different language communities. So, and the text discuss the role of the translator as an intermediary agent in the communication process between two different language communities. Translators are more than mediators. They not than translator have bicultural vision, can identify culture differences, and help to read the search language carefully before translating. So, overall, from my material, translator and interpreter discuss the evolution of the translator's role in cultural mediation and debate over the extent to which translators should be active in facilitating cross-cultural communication while adhering to established codes of ethics. So, okay, maybe that's all for me. I return to moderator. Thank you.
Thank you for Nur Ainun. And next slide. Okay, next material is classification of rules. Will be explained to Rafika. For Rafika, time is yours.
Okay, thanks to moderator. So this section discusses the evolving roles and responsibilities in the field of translation and interpreting as follows. The first is translation and interpreting involves more than just language transfer, with debate over whether professionals should engage in additional activities. Localizations, industry, and specialist roles such as dialogue interpreter and translator have emerged, emphasizing the need to focus on intercultural communication. Okay, next, the expand text of intercultural mediators include cultural brokering, conflict mediation, advocacy and education as emphasized by Hans Verb, and the core competencies proved by Tipton and Permanic. The head of the government's intercultural mediation unit in Belgium, Hans Verp, 2008, for instance, believes that the intercultural mediator's duties include not only interpreting itself, but many other roles such as acting as a cultural broker, explaining the world of one party to the other, providing practical help and emotional support, engaging in conflict mediation when necessary, acting as an advocate, advising professionals on issues facing ethnic minority members and providing health education to patients. Next, Spock Hacker distinguishes between three types of medicines: cultural or language, cognitive, and contractual mediation, which describe different roles and responsibilities in the field of translation and interpreting. Okay, next slide. Okay, the text highlight the need for a distinction between translator or interpreter and intercultural mediator, underlining the complementary relationship between the two. Okay. The two can be expected to coexist side by side, most likely in a constructive and complementary relationship and even in the same person. The guarantee of the qualified professional and his client being aware that service provided in particular interaction is interpreting or mediation, and that case built on a subject professional practice model. Okay, next, the role of translators and interpreters involves implied mediation between cultures, while cultural mediators engage in literal and contractual mediation aiming to resolve conflict and difference. Okay, next, the text emphasizes the importance of context in determining the extent of a translator's of or interpreter's intervention, suggesting that active participation should be nuanced and dependent on the particular communication situation. And last, while there is a push for a more active mediator, caution is advised due to the potential risks associated with altering the original text. The need for professionals to have a deep understanding of cultural difference and communication strategies is highlighted. Okay, maybe that's enough from me. Back to the writer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all of the presenters. Finally, we are come to the last agenda. We would like to say thanks again for the presenter and all of the audience for active participants. The conclusion of presentation today is discussion some of the difficulties involved in language transfer. And the second is introduce translation and interpretation as activities that involve more than language transfer. Next is introduce the concept of cultural mediator. Discuss the nature of mediation in translation, interpreting, and cultural mediation. And the last is clarify the boundaries between the roles of translator or interpreters and cultural mediators. Okay, hopefully the presentation will give benefit for us. Thank you for all your attention. Have a great day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.